Right, now this will tell us. And that's pretty conclusive. Still going. Close. I think he's got it down.
How strong is he?
Oh, welcome back to the Pick and Go podcast. It's season 2025, and that's right. We're back again. We've got a few new faces. Got some old faces as well. I guess first of all, we should start with our good friend Ben Searle up there in the big smoke. Surly, welcome back for another season.
Yeah, cheers. I'm stoked the lads are back for another season. Flash new setup as well. So looking forward to a big year ahead.
And joining us today, usually I'd have Piti Wipu in studio with me. Unfortunately, he's been called away at late notice. So don't worry about it. We've found another halfback, and we're heading up north as well for this one. Steve Devine. Steve, thanks for joining us here on the Pick and Go.
Oh, my pleasure. It's good to see that there's still some intelligence with halfbacks being involved. That's good to know.
That's where we go for the intelligence. We go to the number nines, 100%. Before we get to Super Rugby, just looking on the computer before I walked in here, big news, NFL news down this part of the world. It looks like Melbourne may be hosting up to 3 regular season games over the next few seasons, starting in 2026. First of all, Surly, that's got to, I guess, rock the sporting world down this part of the planet.
Yeah, it's massive, isn't it? I can imagine it'll be big for the Melbourne economy as well. But yeah, this is huge for the game over this side of the world. Obviously, Jordan Mailata playing for the Eagles in the Super Bowl this week, so it's a great time to announce it too. And I think they were saying Eagles-Rams is going to be that first game, which will be really popular amongst the punters. So yeah, personally, I'd love to get across. I think they're talking October 2026 at the MCG. That'll be a pretty cool atmosphere. Would love to see one come to Eden Park or somewhere over here. But yeah, look, hopefully 2 trips to the MCG back in the next year. Of course, Boxing Day test for the Black Caps too. So would love to be getting around that.
Steve, you played at the MCG?
I may have jumped the fence there once and had a bit of fun around, but no, I never played there. But I've been to watch a few events there. I watched a Boxing Day test there back in 95 or 96 or something like that. It's a fantastic stadium. And, you know, the people of Melbourne just love watching sport. They just turn up on a Saturday and Sunday, and I think half the time they don't even know what's on. So they'll probably get a bit of a shock when they turn up and it's an NFL match and not something else. But well done to Melbourne. I mean, I'd imagine there'd be a few other Australian sports pretty nervous, you know, the NRL, you know, the athletes looking at, you know, this NFL game and thinking, you know, there's been a few converts already and maybe lose a few more because there's certainly a lot of athletes in the NRL.
The AFL as well. There's been a few punters that have gone across to the NFL, and this would just make it that much more easier having games played in Australia and with a capacity up to around 100,000. I don't think it would take too much for them to pack a regular season NFL game out, certainly if there was an Aussie connection via the likes of Mr. Mailata.
Yeah, it'd be great watching. I'd certainly throw my hands up to get across and have a watch.
Right, before we get to rugby, let's stick with the American side of sports in the NBA, and a huge trade announced only a day or so ago. And on paper, it seems like a very one-sided trade. The Dallas Mavs trading away Luka Doncic to the LA Lakers for Anthony Davis. This just seems, now there are a few other bits and pieces involved as well, but that's the main gist of this trade. Luka Doncic for Anthony Davis. I guess, Surly, if there was to be a similar trade done in Super Rugby, what 2 players do you think would be involved?
This is incredibly hard to come up with because, like you said, the trade seems so one-sided. You've got a 25-year-old superstar playmaker who has massive X factor, led his team to the final last year. Now they've traded him for a 31, 32-year-old, probably still top 20, top 25 player, a big man, a defensive specialist. But yeah, by every account, you'd have to say Dallas won this trade. I was trying to think along the lines of something that could even get close. And I've really struggled, to be honest. The best I could come up with was like a prime Bodie for an Ethan Blackadder current, because you get that young playmaker who can lead a team to a final, has all the X factor, probably still hasn't reached his full potential. Then you've got an Ethan Blackadder who can struggle with injury at times like Anthony Davis can, defensive specialist. When he's on his game, he's probably top 25, top 30. But yeah, even then, still struggling, because that doesn't seem like a great trade either. So I know the Crusaders would love a prime Bodie to run the cutter at 10 this year. So that was the best I could come up with, but it's still not quite right. Maybe even like a DuPont for a Scott Barrett is a little bit closer. But even then, yeah, I don't know. This one had me a bit whiff, because yeah, it seems like one of the craziest trades in American sport.
Steve Devine, who would you do? Obviously, you'd be Luka Doncic, so who would we be trading you for?
I actually went for something pretty similar to Surly. I thought I would trade Ethan Blackadder again because of the injuries, and we're quite strong in that six-back row position at the moment at number 8. So I thought we'd trade him for Joey Manu. Get Joey back get him from Japan, and let's see what he's got, and hopefully eligible for the All Blacks. And I just think he would be amazing in an All Black jumper. Those fast feet he's got, the ability to beat that rush defence. You'd be crazy to rush at Joey Manu with ball in hand. He's a game changer, I think, and I think the All Blacks desperately need him just to free up the outsides a little bit, where we're having so much of a hard time against those northern rush defences and the Springboks, of course.
Some great suggestions there. I had a look and I thought, so Luka, he's probably, you can argue he's in the top 2, top 3 players in the NBA at the moment. And Anthony Davis is he's 31 now. He's sort of just getting over the other side of the hill. I'd still rate him in the top 5 centers in the NBA, so certainly not a bum. So I thought maybe someone like a Cam Roigard for Patrick Tuipulotu, something like that, where I think Cam has shown that he's certainly right up there in terms of New Zealand rugby players, and I think Patrick Tuipulotu is just starting to get towards the end of it. No, slide on Patrick, of course. Crikey, if I meet him anywhere, I don't want him.
I say that to his face.
Yeah, you're brave, Paulie.
I think it's a compliment that I'm comparing him to Anthony Davis, one of the greatest NBA centers of all time. So, but just getting towards the end there. So I thought, Roigard for Tuipulotu, but it's fascinating that these trades can, first of all, that the NBA are okay with this sort of trade going ahead when it seems so one-sided. That boy, oh boy, the Lakers get something out of this one. Of course, the Utah Jazz are involved as well. But we'll see how that all pans out, because I don't see a hell of a lot of defense in that Lakers lineup with Doncic joining the thing. So you can imagine they're probably going to be playing 145 to 140 sort of game. So we're looking at 280-plus game totals for these Laker games coming up. And, of course, they do meet the Mavs in about, 2.5 weeks' time. So that will be very interesting to see how that goes. But we're a rugby podcast, so we probably better get back to the game at hand. And, of course, Super Rugby, the season will kick off next week, but we're going to have a look at, have a brief look at last year. And, of course, the Blues, very, very good. They finished second in the regular season, but were then way too good for the Brumbies in the semi-final, and then just outclassed the Chiefs, unfortunately, who probably just came to the end of their run a week or two, I guess, prior. But Surly, if you look back at last season, what are the big takes for you?
I think the biggest takeaway was just how impressive and how dominant the Blues were under Vern Cotter. They played a different style of Blues rugby at times. They used their big forward pack to dominate, and then with Harry Plummer pulling the strings perfectly in the 10 jersey, I think that style of play really suited him as well, and it was almost a bit of a breakout year for him, a player who floated between 10 and 12, but never quite nailed that jersey. And with Bodie gone for the year, he had the opportunity to do it, and his kicking game and just the way he ran the cutter was perfect. So I was really impressed with the Blues. I thought they were outstanding. The biggest talking points for me had to be the drop-off of the Crusaders, and can they turn that around this year? The Chiefs losing back-to-back finals. And, yeah, I guess that the teams like the Drua, Moana, again, punching above their weight, Moana not finishing last, the Tars getting the wooden spoon last year. I think it was a pretty positive competition, but I think the Blues were the clear favourite, and it's interesting to see how it backs up this year, because surely the Crusaders are going to be improved. Moana with Artie, there's been a lot of player movement, so it sets the tone for an exciting year, and the Aussie sides look improved too. I reckon that's going to be a great comp this year.
Steve, for you, and I probably should have mentioned this prior to going to record. We get a lot of inside information around the Hurricanes from Piti Wipu, so we're expecting a lot of inside information around the Blues from you during this season. But if you look back at last season, I agree with Surly. The Blues had such a professional look about them, and I'm guessing that Vern Cotter has instilled that sort of culture in the team, and he's right. They built it around a big forward pack with a number 10 who controlled the game. We're almost going back to the days of Grant Fox and the Blues team, who had pretty much an all-black pack. How did you see it last year?
Yeah, listen, at the start of last season, the one question mark I had on the Blues was the forward pack, and Vern Cotter just turned that around. They played pretty simple, basic rugby where they got themselves in positions to score points, either by the boot or tries, and they just rumbled. They just, once they got in the 22, they wouldn't get out without scoring points. So from the preseason game I seen last weekend, I don't think a lot's going to change there. Vern is pretty strict with how he wants the boys to play, and we're going to see pretty much the same again, and hopefully a little bit better. I think they're going to need to be a little bit better this year, the Blues. But certainly don't expect a lot different from them, and it'll be all around that big forward pack. I'm really keen to see the Australian teams go. They're 5 teams down to 4, and I just think they're going to be a whole lot stronger for it. The depth's going to be better. I know the Waratahs got the wooden spoon last year. It was so good to see them get that. But, they're stacked this season. They got Tupou. They got Swahili from the Roosters. I just can't see them not being up thereabouts. They got some depth. They got some absolute superstars. And the Aussie teams, I think they're going to be back.
I think we've already heard a big prediction for this season from Spooners into the playoffs this season. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Steve, but I think I just heard you say the Tars are going to be big improvers and will probably be at the business end of the season. Yeah,
I've definitely got them in my top 8 for the business end. They they're actually world-class athletes they've got there now. Their scrum was always under pressure. You got the big Tongan Thor, that's going to shore things up if he can stay on the field. Obviously, with all the teams, injuries play a massive part. There's not huge amounts of depth, and you look at the Crusaders last year. Injuries take a toll, and they struggled with some serious injuries to key players. So, if you can keep people on the field, that you go a long way. But the Waratahs, the Reds, the Reds put 80 points on the Bristol Bears last weekend, and that's Bristol had a few of their top players away with international duties, but that's just that's basketball stuff. So look out for the Aussie teams. I think we've had a good run over the last 4 or 5 seasons where we've just dominated them in every asset. I just don't think that's going to be the case this year, which makes for a great competition.
Well, the Aussie teams have a lot to play for with the Lions coming over for a big series. So I do look forward to see how the Aussie teams go. Of course, no Melbourne Rebels, so we're down to 11 teams in Super Rugby Pacifica. Each team plays 7 games at home, 7 games away. There are a couple of bye rounds for each team. There's no super round this season, which I thought was a great initiative. But obviously with Melbourne gone, they're probably looking for somewhere else to take it now. So if we look at the teams, and we'll start with the New Zealand teams first, and we might as well start with the champions, the Blues.
Just say that again, mate. It sounded so good.
That's the last time you'll hear me say that. If we start with the Blues, they finished second in the regular season last year with 55 points, a 12-2 record, just 1 point behind the Hurricanes. They really haven't lost a hell of a lot in the off-season in terms of players. Probably Akira Ioane would be the big loss. Maybe Bryce Heem, although he probably struggled to get as much game time as he really wanted. Caleb Tangito moves down south. But outside of that, they haven't really lost a hell of a lot. They've still got that I guess, the basis, the foundation of that team that won them Super Rugby title last year. Tunga Fasi, Patrick Tuipulotu, Rico Ioane, Stephen Perofeta. It'll be very interesting to see who plays in the 10 jersey. Plummer's there, Mark Talia, Dalton Papali'i, Bodie, as you said, Hoskins Satutu. So, Surly, what are you expecting from this Blues team this season, the defending champs?
To be honest, and I hate to play spoiler alert, but I expect them to go back to back because, like you said, that team there, the framework right there is, it's rolling over. I think Akira will be missed because that physical forward pack style that they played, he really bought into that last year, and I think he had a massive season, one of his best. So in a way, it was sad to see him go to Japan. There's obviously Anton Segner, who's been waiting to put his hand up there. There's huge raps on Shea Clark, who's come across from the Sevens. He's still young, but this will be his first year in professional 15 footy, so excited to see how he goes there. They've got depth to cover it. Like you mentioned, though, for me, it's that 10-15 combination. It works so well with Harry Plummer and his kicking game, just pulling the strings. Does Bodie play that type of style? It'll be interesting to see how they kind of balance it out. They've got Zahn Sullivan, Perofeta. They've got 4 great players to fit into 2 starting positions, really. And this is where you mentioned that NBA trade before. Imagine what the Crusaders or the Hurricanes would do to get their hands on just one of those 4 guys and have them run the cutter for their teams. AJ Lamb at 12, so I don't see the Bryce Heem omission being too huge. This is a stacked side still on paper. So, I expect them to be right in the mix to go back to back.
Steve, not a lot of changes for the Blues, so
I think they're solid. I know they're hungry. I know they want to go back to back, and I would like to see. I'd just like to see Caleb Clark come into the midfield. He grew up playing midfield. I just think he's aerobic kick chase on the wing is probably the only part of his game that lets him down, and I just feel like he's a midfielder, and the explosive power in and around 12 and 13 I think could cause some few issues. So to me, I think they're balanced. I know they're hungry, and I look forward to seeing what they can produce. It won't be fancy. For a long time the Blues tried to play fancy, entertaining rugby, and it wasn't last year, and it won't be again this year. But they know what they need to do, and they're on track. The trial they played last weekend against the Crusaders, it was just brute force up front, get themselves into a position to score points, and just rumble with the big forwards. So expect to see some more of that. It's all about stopping the pack, I would think, for the Blues this year, for all the other teams.
Well, how's that for a midfield? Rico Ioane and Caleb Clark, Surly.
Yeah, well, is there potential as well that Harry Plummer plays 12 and then they can run 3 pivots with Bodie, Harry Plummer, Perofeta at the back? That's pretty stacked too. Someone like AJ Lamb for massive impact in the final 20 to 30 minutes. They've got options there, and that's a great problem to have. But yeah, Caleb, he's so powerful. His ball running is massive. Not quite sure on his distribution, but like Steve said, he's played it before, so it's not an entirely new position to him. I'd be keen to see it, just out of interest. 100%.
Let's move on. Just south of the Blues catchment area, and we get to the Chiefs, who they met in the final last year. The Chiefs finished fourth in the regular season on 43 points with a 9-5 record. Once again, they have a very, very similar look to them, to the team that they had last season. I guess the biggest losses maybe a Josh Ioane, Tyrone Thompson, although he was behind a player or two, so you can understand that. They've once again pretty much kept the bulk of that team that almost went the whole way last season. So I guess, Steve, where do you see the Chiefs go? Are they going to improve? They go one step further, or will they be just miss out? Will they just miss out again?
I think the Chiefs have probably the strongest squad in the competition. I think their depth's amazing. Their back three, no matter who they play, is going to be lightning. Josh Jacob Taranaki had an awesome campaign for Naki, and I think he's going to get a bit of time at 10. They've got D-Mac running the cutter. Like for me, I think these guys are favourites to win the comp. That depth, their back row's amazing. They've got a strong, tight five. I can't see how they won't go close. I just think they're, in terms of a squad, I think that's the best squad in the competition.
Well, Surly, are you as confident around the chances of the Chiefs this season, just like Steve, or do you think they might just fall short again? He does make a good point. They have a very, very strong squad and a squad that's got depth in just about every single position.
Yeah, they do. And when you look last year, I thought they really missed Talkiaho at times as well. He comes back and he'll be another one fired up after a massive year from Asafo Aumua in the black jersey to show that he's well and truly still in the mix for that All Black cooking role. The biggest thing for me, though, is the concern around Wallace and when he'll be back. Obviously, World Breakthrough Player of the Year. They're saying he's going to miss the majority. Does that get extended and become the whole competition? If they can get him back with, say, 2 or 3 games before playoffs, then I think the Chiefs, suddenly probably do shoot into favourites, but it's around how much they might miss him. When you look at the depth there, they've still got guys like Boshier. They've got the young Waikato number 8 this year as well, who I thought was really impressive. So they can tinker around a bit as well. They could start Naitoa Akoi at lock and move one of their locks to the 6 jersey. They've got options there, but for me, Wallace is a big loss if he ends up missing the whole competition.
That's the big thing, Wallace Satiti, and he was a dynamo in a number of, I guess, attacking sequences that the Chiefs. He could make something out of nothing. That's how good he was last season. I can understand why he was World Breakout Player of the Year. I know a team's not one player, but he was a big, big part of that Chiefs' success last season. So how much do you factor in him not being there for a good part of the season, Steve, or possibly the whole season?
Yeah, listen, he's a big loss, but I think the one team who can, soak up a loss in the back row is probably the Chiefs. They've still got Finau. Like, they're just stacked. Luke Jacobson, there's still enough All Blacks in their back row to hide the loss of Wallace Satiti. No doubt he had an outstanding, but he only played like 4 or 5 games last year, so it's not as if he was a massive part of the team. He wasn't there a lot, so I think if any team can soak up that loss, it's going to be the Chiefs because they're still pretty stacked. Finau, I just still think he's a puppy. Like, he is going to be something else when he grows into his body. When he hits hard. He carries the ball hard. He's tall. He's a line-out jumper. For me, Finau is the big, angry All Black number 6 that we've missed since the likes of Kaino. I can't wait till he grows up. I'm glad I'm watching him and not playing against him because I just think he's an absolute beast.
Especially if you were wearing the 10 jersey each week, you're faking a hammy or doing a calf in captain's run, surely, especially if you're an Australian 10, because he seems to hate them even more than the Kiwi 10s.
Yeah, especially the ones with red hair, eh?
Yeah, big time.
I guess in terms of the Chiefs squad, Surly, it's almost a question of who do you leave out as opposed to who do you, there's so many combinations that they could go with the first of all, the loose forward trio, even without Wallace Atiti, the outside backs, where do they go? Does who plays 10? Is it Jacob, who played very, very well for Taranaki in the NPC last season? Can you make a case for Jacob, or do you see them reverting back to from last season?
I can make a case for him. I think it's going to be really interesting. Obviously, he's a mate of mine, but Sean Stevenson coming back in round 4. Do New Zealand Rugby and that look at this a bit different? Do they use him off the bench and roll with Jacob at 10, D-Mac at 15, Etene Nanai-Satoro and Amani Narawa? They're both players that can cover multiple positions as well. Does Shooter get semi-punished, I guess, for going over to Japan and missing the start of the competition? I think he's such an X-factor player and he can change a game that I would have him starting. But it's going to be interesting, the mindset around that, right? Because you've got a young 10 like Josh Jacob coming through, played some All Blacks 15 last year. Him and D-Mac is a pretty nice 10-15 combination. Then you've got Etene, who's a world-class 15. I think he could easily make an All Blacks jersey at some stage if he's fully healthy. We've seen what he does for counties at the back too. So yeah, they've got so much talent. It's just going to be, I guess, the dynamic around it. And if there is maybe a slight chip on the shoulder there, it'll be interesting.
They've also got Caleb Trask, who I think is probably the most underrated player in New Zealand rugby. I think he's an absolute class act, and then he just needs some time. And it's sort of, wherever he's gone, there's always just been that one person in front of him. And, you know, he's a great person to have on the bench as well. Plays 12, 10, and 15.
Well, they certainly seem to have a number of options open to them, the runners-up last season, the Taranaki Waikato Chiefs. We'll move a wee bit further south now, down to the Hurricanes, who finished first in the regular season, and they had to do it in the final week of regular season. They finished on 56 points with a 12-2 record, one more bonus point than the Blues. Well, there's a whole lot going on at the Hurricanes. There's the movement is unbelievable. First of all, they've lost a whole heap, not just of skill, but experience. Geordie Barrett, TJ Perenara, Artie Severe. You take those three out of any team, there's got to be a drop in performance. Well, you're losing a whole lot of leadership, first of all. But forget about just how good those players are. So what are we expecting from the Canes this year, Sully?
Yeah, when you say the Hurricanes to me, in most recent years, you think of TJ and Artie, really, in terms of their leadership. And I guess what epitomizes wearing that Hurricanes jersey. And then probably after that, you think of someone like Geordie. So yeah, it's certainly going to be a different season for them. No Ruben Love for the start of the competition. When he comes back, does he play 15? Does he play 10? Because there appears to be a gap there. They've lost Jackson Garden-Bishop up to Moana as well, who I think is another incredibly underrated playmaker, and I think he's going to be a handy pickup for them. But at the moment, I saw Riley Hohepa running there on the weekend. That's a big step up for him to become a regular starting 10. They've got Cam Roigard, Duplessis Kirifi, Peter Lakai, there's that Kini Naholo. There's still a lot of exciting talent there, but do they have that leadership that can steer the ship, win them close games? Because come the back end of the season, you drop 3 or 4 games by under 10 points and that can cost you your season. So, yeah, it could be a bit of a transition year for the Hurricanes. I'm really interested, though, when Ruben Love's back. Does he play 10? That Harry Godfrey looks really sharp at the back. I thought he was outstanding for Hawke's Bay. Good goal kicker too, so maybe he plays 15. But yeah, there's a few question marks for me around this Canes side.
Steve, if you have a look at the Hurricanes, are you concerned about all of the experience that they've lost with those departing players?
Yeah, listen, it's hard. You can't buy experience, right? So they've lost a lot, and is it going to hurt them? Absolutely, it is going to hurt them. But I think the exciting thing about the Hurricanes for the first time in probably 3 or 4 seasons is they're probably going to carry the underdog tag a little bit with them this year, and I just think that hunger helps the young team. So I think that's going to be a benefit. I still think they probably need to take a leaf out of the Blues book. They've got a very, very strong forward pack up front, and if they can get going forward, then they're able to use the backs. I really think they need to take a bit of a leaf out of the Blues books and just concentrate on going forward first, and then letting the backs use the ball. The Hurricanes on their day over the last few years, when they're on, they're untouchable, and they can go from 100 metres out and score tries when they're on. I just think they need to tone it down a little bit this season. They've got some inexperienced guys there. Just get going forward and then use the backs. I'm pretty excited about Riley Higgins. I think he's going to be a special kid. He can play some serious rugby, and hopefully get a fair bit of time in the 12 jumper with Geordie missing. It's going to be hard to go past Cam Royard to be near on the Royal Player of the Tournament if he can stay on the field, which no doubt he can. He looks big, he looks strong, he's so fast. I think he's the next dimension that the Canes need. But his game's all based on if that forward pack can go forward, and if they can put Royard on a platform of going forward, they're going to be hard to beat. They're a strong team. I just think they've got to be not so razzle-dazzle and just a little bit more hard-nosed up front this year, the Hurricanes.
Surely, if we look at that forward pack, it still does have a very, very solid look to it. We've got Tyrell Lomax, Asafo Omua, Xavier Numia. If you look at the loose forwards, they're still very, very strong, even without Artie Severe. So can this forward pack lay the foundation for that back line to score a few points?
Yeah, absolutely. When you look at guys like Tossie and that as well, who, of course, got his first taste of All Blacks footy, and I think he'll grow massively from that. He's a huge human being, so 100% agree with Steve. They've just got to play that kind of forward-dominant game. I think, though, in order to do that, you do have to have a strong 10 with a great kicking game to put them in the right positions as well to be able to come away with points. So that is the biggest question mark for me. But yeah, this Canes pack, like you said, when you look at Braden Yossi, Peter Lakai, Flanders, Duplessis Karifi, there's still a lot of talent in that loose forward trio. It's just that 10 jersey for me.
Okay, let's move down to the Crusaders, who weren't in the playoffs last season.
Say that again.
Who had an early Christmas, I guess you could say. They finished 9th on 24 points with a 4-10 record. To be fair, if they had snuck into the playoffs with a record of around 4-10, it doesn't really say too much for the competition. And the playoffs have changed slightly this season to reflect that. But if we look at the Crusaders, we're talking about number 10s. Well, they've imported a number 10, and that seemed to be one of the pieces that were missing last year. And to be fair to the Crusaders, they had a whole heap of injuries as well, which sort of stopped them from getting that momentum. Surly, Crusaders, are we going to see a big improvement from the Crusaders this season?
Surely, right? When you think guys like Will Jordan should be there all year, that gives a massive X factor. They get back quality players like Braden Enor as well. Scott Barrett, of course, didn't play much code. We saw a massive improvement in the back end of their season when Cody Taylor came back. I do wonder, with David Havili named as captain, do Scott Barrett and Cody Taylor play as much as we'd expect? Are they going to play every week, or is there going to be some kind of load restriction there? Because I know it's been... Well, they said they don't think Scott Barrett can captain both, but yeah, the majority of All Blacks captains have captained their Super Rugby side throughout the season too. So that's going to be an interesting one. Who wears the 10 jersey? Is James O'Connor the answer there? I'm not so sure. Rivers Rehan is there, but David Havili's played a bit of time at 10 before as well. They've got plenty of options in the midfield, so how they work around that is kind of crucial. Noah Hotham at 9, so that's exciting. On paper, they have a good team. Yeah, they should be much improved than 9th, although I'd love to see them not be. Surely they will be.
Well, they're going to have to be 6th at worst to make the playoffs this season. So, Steve, if you look at their lineup, if they can stay healthy, and look, they did have their injuries last season, 2 very, very important players, but they seem to, for a team that has always had probably the best number 10 or the second best number 10 for so many years in New Zealand rugby, they just didn't have that, I guess, that guiding hand, the one that they rely on at first 5'8" last season. So do you see James O'Connor making a difference here?
No. No, listen, every rugby competition in the world, doesn't matter where it is, who it is, what level it is, whoever has the best number 10 in that competition generally goes pretty close to winning it. So, you just need a good number 10. Do I think James O'Connor's the secret to that? I don't think so. Listen, if they keep players on the field, they're going to be at the pointy end of the season, no doubt about it. They're a class outfit. There's a heap of All Blacks. There's a heap of talent. There's guys last year that I thought would be massive who sort of underperformed. Guys like Levi Amua, I just think he is in for a massive season. If they, if that forward pack can get on the front foot, they're going to give the backs a bit of extra time and space, and that's the Canterbury way, a massive set piece and just the forward pack that gets on the front foot. And that's what they weren't able to deliver that last year. So, that's what they'll be looking at this year. I think just keeping guys on the field. They've had so many players that have, played so many games and so many seasons that when those guys get injured, there's not a lot underneath them, the Crusaders. And that's where they got found out last year. They had a lot of young guys starting at times, and, it's a tough competition to not have any experience whatsoever. And when those big pressure moments come on, you have people looking at each other, not quite knowing what to do. So, the Crusaders were found out last year through injuries, through lack of experience, and they keep those big boys on the field this year. They're going to be there or thereabouts. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Massive front row. They've got massive locks. They've got massive back row. They're stacked across the park if they're all on the field.
Okay. Just like last season, we're pushing time again, so we'll move down into the deep south to the Highlanders this time, and well, I guess you could say a very young, inexperienced squad. Look, there's a smattering of players that have been around: Tavatava Nawai, Sam Gilbert, Jonah Nareki, Folau Fakatava, but this really does. Jamie's going to have a job on his hands early.
Yeah, he is. I was quite impressed with them last year in certain games. There's a lot of young talent down there. Obviously, Ethan de Groot's going to have a massive leadership role alongside the co-captains. I was a little surprised to see Tavatava Nawai as a co-captain, but that's incredibly exciting because, is he a good football player? He's like another flanker out there over the ball at ruck time. He's so strong. And then one-on-one out on the wing, he's almost impossible to stop. I think in Caleb Tangito, they've formed a really exciting back three with good depth. Jacob Ratamatavuki Nepkins, Jonah Nareki and Tavatava Nawai and Tangata all fighting for 3 spots is pretty exciting. Sam Gilbert, Cam Miller, they're all young talents too. And then, of course, Fabian Holland at lock. I think he's in for that year where he cements himself as an All Black lock. He's eligible this year. No doubt they've been looking at him last year as well, just wishing he was eligible to give him a trot. I think he's going to step his game up to another level too. And under Jamie Joseph, probably the perfect coach to get it out of him. So, yeah, 6th last year I think they finished, which was probably a good result. If they can play finals footy again this year, that would be massive.
Steve, the Highlanders, do you give them any chance this season with Jamie Joseph at the helm?
Yeah, that's the chance you give them, right, Jamie Joseph? They will be hard, they will be tough, and there'll be no compromise with the Highlanders this year. And I just think that's what they need. They're probably a younger, more inexperienced team than the rest of them in New Zealand, and Jamie Joseph is that hardness factor. And what you'll get from the Highlanders this season, they'll be itching to be the underdog. They will be hard, uncompromising, and you're in for a battle, and they may not win them all, but it's going to be a tough physical battle every game against the Highlanders. So I can I see them at the end, right at the end? Probably not, just with their inexperience and their squad depth, but they'll knock over some big boys this year, no doubt about that. And consistency will be a lot higher than what it was last year. So hopefully they can push themselves into that playoff spot. But I just think maybe there's a few stronger squads around than the Highlanders.
Okay, let's move on. We'll sort of almost group the rest of the teams. Let's have a look at Moana Pacifica first, because That's where a lot of action has been happening in the off season. They just named their captain overnight, and funnily enough, it's this guy called Adi Savea, probably the biggest pickup for any team in the off season. As you mentioned earlier, Surly, Jackson Garden Bishop also moves there, so there's a wee bit of stability in that number 10 jersey. Solomon Alai Marlaw, a former chief, a West Tiger last season, comes back to rugby. What do we expect from Moana Pacifica this year?
Jeepers. I don't know. You could paint me two completely different scenarios, couldn't you? I'm stoked that Artie's there. When you think about the number one player in the world to get to Moana Pacifica, he's the player for me. So this is massive for this franchise, and I think it just attracts public interest too. So hopefully that relates to bums on seats. They've moved to North Harbour Stadium, so it'll be cool to see some crowds get out and support this team. I think they've made a couple nice depth pickups, but do they have enough depth in that squad to be able to compete with the top 6 sides in the competition? I'm not so sure. I think they'll continue to be bogey sides for teams, and if you take them lightly, they'll trip you up. I do expect them to be improved, but yeah, I think there's still maybe 1 or 2 more biggish names away from being a regular contender. I'm just so excited to see Artie there, because for me, he's the perfect player to go to this franchise, and I'm excited to see how it plays out.
Steve, Artie moves there, and it may not be this season where we see a big, huge improvement from Moana Pacifica, but with him there, hopefully that drags a few more Pacific players away from their, I guess, the Super Rugby teams that they started out with. But how do you see them going this year? Will we see them challenge for a playoff spot, or will that be just a step too far?
Well, I've heard Artie turns up first day, he turned up to training, and there was an instant shift in attitude from everyone. That he's holding people accountable for their training and their actions, and training is just of a better, higher intensity already since he's have arrived in camp. So will they be a better team? Absolutely, they'll be a better team this year, just straight from having someone of his presence at training every day. Can they go better? Absolutely. Like Moana on their day, they're as good as anyone. You know, if you get in one of those grind battles with them, those big Polynesian boys, they just love those real tight physical games. And if you get them on their day, you're in for a very tough day at the office. And then they get that roll of steam up, they get the crowd in behind them, and things just develop at a rapid pace when they're on the front foot. So, Artie's going to assist that. He's no compromise. He's all business, and I'm sure they're going to be a hell of a lot better team this year than they were last year, which is scary because they did improve last year, and another big jump this year puts them pretty close to that mid pack, fighting for a playoff position.
All right, we'll stay with you, Steve, and let's have a look at the Australian teams. I guess we saw the Queensland Reds head up to the Northern Hemisphere and, completely destroy an understrength Bristol Bears side. We've seen the Waratahs and the Brumbies playing a preseason match, a stalemate. So if you look at the Australian team, so which ones are you most impressed with? You've mentioned the Waratahs earlier on.
Yeah, the Waratahs are definitely a better squad than what they were last year. The Reds on that performance up in the UK, the thing with the Aussie teams, they're 5 into 4, right? So they're stronger. There's more depth in each of those 4 teams now. So they can pick up a few injuries and cover where the last few seasons, 3 or 4 seasons, they haven't been able to. Once they get a few injuries, they're pulling out club rugby players who are just not up to it, unfortunately. But 4 teams this year, they're going to be competitive. I like the Brumbies. They've always been competitive. I like the Tars will definitely be a better side than what they were last year. The Reds, they'll be there or thereabouts as well. I think probably the Western Force will be the team that may struggle a little bit, and I possibly see them maybe being at maybe towards the bottom end of the table. I really think that they just don't quite have the big impact players that some of the other Aussie teams do now.
Surely Steve's right. 5 teams into 4 means a greater spread, a more concentrated sort of spread of the talent that the Australians have. So overall, do you see an improvement from all of the Australian teams as a whole?
Mainly the 3 outside of the force, like what Steve said. I tipped the Tars last year to come last, and I'm certainly not tipping them to do that this year. I reckon they're going to be a great side. They're the biggest gainers for me. When you look across the talent that they've picked up, the Brumbies are always really good, especially at home. And the Reds showed last year, they were the Chiefs' kryptonite at times. It feels like every time they played them, bar finals footy, they bet them. And they're an exciting young team too. So the Reds will be in the mix. I think, that the Aussie teams have got stronger, the Force not so much, but it leaves, for me, then the Drua in an interesting position, right? They didn't win a game away from home last year. They were 0-8. They were 6 from 7 at home. They play 8 home games this year and 6 away. If they can win 7 of their 8 at home at a 50% record out of the 14 games, they probably play finals. So they're that swing team for me, right, where an Aussie team could potentially miss out one of those big 3 from playing finals footy just because the Drua win every home game they play. But can they sustain that this year? That's the biggest question mark in the competition for me, is the Drua.
Steve, the Drua, interesting. As Surly mentioned, at home they're very, very tough. First of all, the humidity. Second, the crowd is just going to be they're against you the whole way. They love their footy over there, and it's a big event when the Drua get to play in Suva. So can you see them pushing for a playoff spot this season?
Absolutely. I think there's 33 internationals in their squad, which makes them, in theory, the best squad in the competition. No one's got that many internationals. So, listen, near on impossible to beat at home. They've knocked over pretty much every New Zealand team at home except the Blues, and I just think they're just a different beast. Having played in Fiji against a Fijian team, it is a tough day at the office. They just grow an arm and a leg, and they run harder, they tackle harder. They're a different beast, and the crowd gets behind them, and they just become invincible. These Warriors, they just become invincible at home, and bring it on. I can't wait. They play such entertaining rugby. I love the way they play their rugby, and I actually really just enjoy sitting down and watching them throw the ball around and see how they go about their things. They've got some good coaching. They've got a country that's behind them, and bring it on. They've got some young talent. They've got some old heads back, and bring it on. I think they're the excitement of the competition. I love watching them play their footy, and it's a great endorsement for the game to throw the ball around, and then they get stuck in. They're physical, and they've got some cool heads in the Ted jumper. So I just think that I 100% think they're going to be involved in finals footy.
Oh, well, let's get down to that. Let's have a look. And I want you to give us the ladder, the finishing ladder for the Super Rugby Pacific 2025 from 11 to 1. So let's start with the spoon. Surly, who have you got for the spoon?
I've got the Western Force.
Same.
That's all 3 of us. That's okay. So that's soz about that Western Force, but yeah, I wish you all the best. Okay, 10th, Surly.
This hurts me to say, but I've got Moana just because of how tight the comp is going to be this year. I think there's going to be 1 or 2 wins separating 6th and 10th, and unfortunately, I've got them there.
Yeah, I just think with Aussie from 5 to 4, they're just a little bit stronger this year. I know Moana will be stronger as well, but I just think they're going to be battling for the season. So yeah, Moana in second last.
Sounds like there's a Moana Pacific supporter in the background there, not happy with you putting them down in 10th. But I have to agree, even with the addition of Artie Severe, it's going to be very, very tough. If they can stay healthy, and they really do need to stay healthy, because I just think that experience falls away very, very quickly once we get away from their top 15. It will be tough. So I'm with you guys as well. Moana Pacifica to be 10th. Ninth place, really.
I've got the Highlanders.
I've got the Highlanders as well.
Oh, my goodness. We're 3 from 3. This is crazy. We need to mix things up. Okay, guys. 8th.
I've got the Reds, but I don't feel great about that. I think they'll be better than that. But yeah, I just did this not long ago, and I keep changing my mind during the show. But yeah, I've got the Reds, not confidently at all.
Yeah, this is where things get a bit niggly for me as well. I'm torn between 3 teams here. I think I'm going to go. I'm going to go the Tars.
Oh.
I think it comes down to those Aussie teams playing each other, and who do I think? The Reds, the Brumbies. I think the Brumbies are better than the Reds. I think the Tars and the Reds. I think as a squad, I think the Reds. If the Waratahs get a few injuries, I think I'm going to go just to be different. I'll go the Tars.
Yeah, I've got the Reds as well. I'm looking for a big. I don't know if it's because of Joseph Suaalii. In fact, it's more than just him. But I think we'll see a big improvement from the Tars. Where are we now? 7th.
I've got a few teams here, but
You can only have one.
after hearing the 33 internationals, and if my quick math was correct, and they do have an 8-6 split home to away, then unfortunately the draw will move up and the Canes will go here.
Wow.
I've got the Canes as well because
Wow.
I just don't think they quite have the depth. You know, I think they've got a forward pack that'll beat everyone up. I'm just worried about those backs. A few injuries, and I think they've lost so much experience that, you know, once those injuries come in, I just think they can get themselves on a bit of a downhill spiral without leaders standing up to help.
I've got the Tars. Right, we move into the playoff positions now. 6th.
The draw.
I'm going to go the Reds.
I'm going the Drua. 5th.
I've got the Waratahs.
I'm going to go Drua.
I've got the Canes. 4th. Top
Of course
4.
you do. That's a patriotic pick there, Paulie. In 4th, I've got the Crusaders.
Crusaders.
Yeah, Crusaders. 3rd.
Got the Brumbies.
Brumbies.
Brumbies. We got the same top 2.
Yeah, we've got the same top 2. It's in what order, though?
Okay.
And at 2nd, I've got the Chiefs.
I'm going to say at 2nd, I've got the Blues.
I've got the Chiefs. And so that means that me and Searley have got the Blues number 1, and you've got the Chiefs number 1.
I got the Chiefs number 1 to lose another final.
Oh, God. They're like the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
Always make it to the big dance, but yeah, never succeed. Look, anyway, should we have a look at a wee bit of punting? I guess. Because with the futures markets are out, the team have also got the first round markets out, but we'll have a look at the futures markets for Super Rugby this season, and no surprises, the Blues are at the top of that market. The defending champions, they're $2.75 to win. The Chiefs are $3.25. Hurricanes $6.50. I don't see a lot of value there, to be fair. The Crusaders, that has attracted a little bit of attention from me, $7. Brumbies, the most favoured Australian team, at $8. The Reds are at $15. The Drua, $21. Tars, $26. Highlanders, $31. Force, $81. Moana Pacifica, $101. So we're not too dissimilar from what the bookies think at the moment. But if you had $100, where would you go, Surly? Where would you put that for your futures bets for Super Rugby this season?
I've got 3 bets here. The first one being $50 on a Blues versus Chiefs final at $3.25. The second one is Hurricanes top try scorer, Cam Roigard, paying $5, and he's my pick for a player of the season. Despite them not making finals, I just think he's going to be exceptional again this year. And then my last $25 is on Caleb Clark to be the tournament top try scorer at $5.50.
Yes, very nice. Steve, what are you doing?
I'm going $100 smack bang on the nose of the Blues to win the competition.
Is that a heart and head bet? Is that the perfect combination right there?
Absolutely. We're well overdue for a double. It's been, how many years since it started? We won the first 2, and we're due for a double. It's time.
I was going to do the same thing as Steve. I was going to put the whole hundy on the Blues, but I don't want to do that now. I'm going to put 50 on the Blues to win the comp.
I've talked him out of it. I've scared him with my 3 bets because he knows come business end, if that fails, that could be the difference between winning and losing the season. He's rattled early.
I'm going to pick the finalists as well. I'm going to go Blues Crusaders to make the final, which obviously, well, with the new system, it can happen because the top 6, 1 plays 6, 2 plays 5, 3 plays 4, and then the 3 winners go through, and the best loser goes through. Yeah. So you can still get some crazy sort of combinations going there. So I don't mind the look of the Blues Crusaders in the final at $8. I'll put 25 on that, and then I've got to have a top try scorer. Oh, geez.
Will Jordan.
Yeah.
Will Jordan's back. I just think he scores tries full stop.
Yeah, Will Jordan at $6, $25 on that for him to be the top try scorer for the tournament. Rightio, we've made it through to the end of the show, guys. Is there anything you want to add before we sign off? Once again, Shirley's always going to be a part of it, and Steve's going to be a regular part of the Pick and Go this season. We'll be having him back quite a few times to help out. So I don't know what it's going to be like if we have Steve and Pitty on the same podcast. 2 nines is just
how intelligent.
It's too many for mine.
Can we guess what Pitty's bets would have been? He would have done $50 on the Canes to win it, and the other 50 on the Hurricanes halfback Cam Roigard to be the top try scorer in the comp. Those would have been his 2 bets. Let's ask him next week because odds are he's not going to listen, and I reckon those would be his too.
I'll flick him a message and so that we can get his picks, and we might be able to put them up somewhere. So. Yeah, but I agree with you. He'll definitely have something on the Canes to win the comp, and then he'll have something on either Cam Roigard or Asafo Amua to be tournament top try scorer. Yeah. Rightio, that's it for the Pick and Go this week. Thank you to Surly for joining us. Thanks to Steve Devine for jumping in. Don't forget, we'll be back next week when we look at the first round of games, and we'll do a wee bit of punting, have a bit of fun with it, and we'll find out just how confident Steve Devine is around how the Waratahs are going to go first time up. All righty. Thanks for joining the Pick and Go. We'll catch you again next week.